You know him from Twitter with the @ symbol in front of his name with the famous line, "Don't be a tweet." He is one of Bowling Green's most recognized social media celebrities. And today we have lunch with the one and only Joe Imel. Thanks for sitting down and having lunch with Tony Rose today.
Love it. I'm excited to be here. I'm a little apprehensive.
Right.
Don't know what's going to happen.
I'm going to pull up your Twitter in a minute. We're going to make sure everything is good.
Right.
But we're going to have a lot of fun today. But we're at Wild Egg, so first things first, it's time to get caffeinated.
Love it.
Good morning.
How are you?
Today? I'm good. I'm good. My name's Nicole. I'll be your server today.
Cool.
Can I grab you guys any of we have crazy coffees. We have some fresh squeezed orange juice. Our coffee today is a chocolate chip coffee right now.
Whoa. Joe, your call.
You know what? I'm going to go straight coffee.
Straight regular coffee?
Yeah, and no decaf. That's the devil's blend. I need.
Love it.
I need the diesel fuel.
Diesel fuel. Got it.
Coffee, black as his soul.
Got it.
You
Sounds great. Would you like cream with your coffee?
No, ma'am.
Sounds great. Be
Bring
right
it
back,
on.
guys.
All right. So thanks for sitting down with me, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. This is interesting.
You are, without a doubt, one of the most fascinating people in this town. That, like, through the power of social media. But I want to know more of, like, how did it all start for you?
Right.
Photography is where it all started for you.
Sure.
Right?
Photojournalism is where it started.
When did all this, like, take us back to the young Joe Imel?
Sure. So, this is a story that I tell quite often when I speak to classes and young professionals. And
luckily, we have no class and we're not young.
That's
so
exactly.
We can totally throw that script out.
My dad was a military officer, and I lived in California, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Texas, New York, New Jersey, Germany for 6 years, Ohio twice, Kentucky twice. And my dad was stationed at Fort Knox for his last assignment. Yeah. And he went over to Turkey unaccompanied so I could go to high school at Fort Knox. I played football, I wrestled, and was voted, most artistic. Right. Oh, hey, the diesel fuel.
Yes. Now we're going to get good right here.
Yeah, I'm
going to need coffee.
It's going to take a turn here. It's going to take a turn.
We're going to talk just a lot faster.
Now, see, this is where I would have burnt my arm off at this point.
Oh, man.
It smells great.
You guys have good coffee. I'll be right back to take your
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can we get a menu? I gotta get this thing looking at. You've had wild eggs before, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Love
I want
it.
to make sure. Yeah,
good stuff.
Okay, so you traveled all around the world.
Sure. And so ended up at Fort Knox, and I used to sculpt and paint in high school. And
you sculpted?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, really. So
like the nude sculpture variety?
Oh well, clay and
okay.
So I was going to be an art teacher and a football coach.
Really?
And I was accepted to Syracuse's School of Art, and I decided not to go, but to follow all my Fort Knox friends down I-65 to Western Kentucky University, where I was going to be an art teacher and a football coach. And Picasso and Blitzes, I don't know if that was going to work.
That sounds like a great band, though.
Yeah. So I was in the art department. I had some great people there, Leo Fernandez, who recently passed away, and just had a good time. But there was a theme in my life where I really wasn't a good student because I partied like a rock star in college. And so the whole art thing lasted a couple semesters, and I threw my art supplies down the trash chute at Keene Hall. I went on a 9-day Old Milwaukee binge. Nice. And I picked up a camera that my dad had brought me from Turkey, and I opened up the course catalog. No computers back then, mind you. It's 1984. Thumbing through the course catalog, I'm like, analyst for the CIA, teacher, veterinarian. I toyed with all this stuff and decided photojournalism. I was the yearbook photographer at Fort Knox High. I can do this. No idea that Western Kentucky University had a great photojournalism program.
The best in the country,
And I walked up the hill to Garrett Conference Center with my camera, and it started photojournalism.
So you fell in love with it.
Fell in love with it wasn't the word, but there was a common theme in my life I continued to party like a rock star. And so I left Western to work at a paper. A fraternity brother of mine was the editor of a small paper in McLean County.
Right.
I went to Calhoun, Kentucky, and moved into an apartment decorated by Fred Sanford on the banks of the mighty Green River. And I found my passion in life. Like literally, I was a very self-conscious guy that wouldn't, very introverted, and and photojournalism and journalism and community journalism just opened me up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's 1984 is when it started.
Mhm.
with Joe Webb. So so you're into the paper. You're
1988.
You're taking pictures there.
Mhm.
Over your career, you've had a chance to take pictures of a lot of famous people,
Sure.
a lot of famous events.
Mhm.
Are there a couple that stand out? Because that's the thing about our worlds.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing radio. You're doing the print side, the photojournalism side, but we end up with a very cool ticket to a lot of events to see things we normally don't get to see. And I know you've had some experiences probably that stand out. What were a couple that you still think about today?
The Daily News has been great, and I started out as their only photojournalist back in 1991.
Right.
And we would get to cover national events that had local impact.
Right.
I photographed the Pope in St. Louis. A lot of Bowling Green Catholics went down there, and I'm Catholic, and that was just a great experience. Followed the Titans to the Super Bowl, was in the end zone of the last play when they lost to the Rams.
Yeah.
Ended up in a book that a friend of mine stumbled upon in the Barnes & Noble. It was documenting the Titans season, and there's that double truck, and there I am in the end zone, photographing.
Wow.
Was lucky enough to photograph President Reagan, President Bush, President Clinton, photographed President Obama right after SEAL Team 6 killed Osama bin Laden. President Obama flew into Fort Campbell. The Associated Press needed the shooter on the media trailer with a huge lens.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting on a media trailer with all this national media. Air Force One flies into Fort Campbell, and President Obama steps out and starts waving, and my job is just to hammer on the shutter.
Yeah.
I'm just yamming on it.
Right.
And I have it hooked up to a
There's
computer.
your for the amateur weekend photographers.
Right.
Yamming on the shutter right there.
Yamming on the
Learned
shutter.
a term today. from
And
Joe
I had my camera connected to a computer, and by the time he got to the bottom of the steps, I had sent my photos to New York.
Wow.
And they were sent out to the world. And then I pick up a camera, and he drives off across the tarmac to meet SEAL Team 6. And I'm just again, shooting, trying to figure out a frame. And that picture of Obama's motorcade running off to meet SEAL Team 6 was used all over the place. And so that was cool. I photographed Donald Trump in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Wow.
When we had, I think it was a young lady from Franklin, was the Miss USA contestant, the Miss Kentucky and the Miss USA, and a reporter and I, Jason Riley, who went to the Courier and then WDRB, we followed her at the Shreveport, and so Donald Trump walks up in a huge, fur coat,
Right.
and we're standing there next to the contestant, and Trump looks over at me and he goes, "What? Are you her dad?" I guess I looked a little older at the time, so I'm still trying to find those photos. They're on film because I want to find the photos of the Don.
Right.
But it has been. I've done a lot of things. I mean, I've seen people die. I've seen people born. I've been in airplanes, balloons, helicopters.
Right.
But what's great is I've been into houses in this community. People let me into their house to tell their story.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. Speaking of, are you his dad or her dad? You are a dad, right? How old's your son?
Yeah, so I have a son, Zachary. He's going to be 24 in a month or two.
He's not a boy now.
No. So Zach went to Bowling Green High.
But you guys, I've seen chances where you guys have had a chance to share the camera together, right?
Well, he is an excellent sports shooter, and actually he covered a Titans game with me, and made a photo of Jack Doyle from the Colts that we ran on the front of sports. That beat me at it.
Yeah.
But Zach played soccer and tennis in high school, and he graduated Western in 3.5 years, and he works in politics in Ohio. He originally he did work for the vice president early on, and now he works up in Ohio.
How cool is that though? Like to see your kid kind of doing what you do, what your passion is. I mean, that's kind of like, you know, it's the same way you see a father out there seeing their son you know, hitting a double for the first time in a Little League game. The first time they take that picture, he's like, you get it. You kind of got it in you.
He does. And actually, my Twitter avatar is a picture of him holding a camera.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so that's a great story. I want
to talk about that, but I got to look at the menu.
Sure.
I got to look at the menu real quick. So you've had wild eggs before? Do you have a favorite from wild eggs?
Well, you know what? I've never met a meal that I didn't like, and especially here at Wild Eggs, man. This is good stuff.
All right.
What are you going for? What do you normally do?
You know, I've been sticking to the lunch menu because they do have the great lunch. But I'm thinking that I have a pancake somewhere in me today. So we're going to look into that. But I know they're running around. So I want to talk. They're going to be here in a second to take the order. But I want to talk to you because when you started, it was all film in the camera. Yeah. But now it's all digital. Yeah. The same way in our world. It was records, and then it was CDs, and now everything is digital. How has technology changed again? I want to talk about where that's going to in the social media world, but do you remember the day when technology kind of came into your world?
Oh, definitely, and it was a huge day. Digital cameras have democratized photography, and though that's something that I firmly believe. You know, back when we shot film, I used to carry 2 cameras, one with black and white film and one with color slide film, so that we could be able, we didn't know what was going to be on the front page in color, inside was black and white, and the whole processes were so different back then. And then we moved to color negative film. And I remember in 1999, the Daily News bought me the first professional digital camera in Bowling Green. $15,000, and it was 1.3 megapixels.
Wow.
And it was a big old potato masher of a camera.
Most iPhones and things like that now are pushing.
I'd carry the iPhone over this thing. Yeah. It was a Nikon film body. With a digital unit on the bottom, no screen, but it had a microphone, and it had a hard drive in it that was $1,000 for 160 megabytes.
Times they are changing, indeed. Well, we're going to order some food here at Wild Eggs. We're talking to Joe Imel, one of the most fascinating people in town that you will find. And on the way, of course, we're going to talk about what you guys want to know about. And that's that little @ symbol and the phrase, don't be a tweet. I want to know where all that came from. We're going to learn all about that. But first, we're going to get some food, and we're going to have it when we come back here at Wild Eggs. It's Lunch with Tony Rose and Joe Imel.
Hey y'all, little trip, about to bust out with some sick rhymes. Oh yeah, here we go. Don't forget your headboards, pillows, and your sheets. We got everything you need for a good night's sleep. Number 1 on the same check, best of Bowling Green.
Alright.
Hey!
Twins, full, queen and king, mattresses for anything. Come and pick it out and we can bring it to your house. Have you sleeping real good before the weekend's out. Trim bedding, it's just like a mattress store. Trim bedding, it's just like a mattress store. Hey.
We're back, Lunch with Tony Rose, Joe Imel on the clock today, and I think we're ready to eat.
Oh, hey, one of my favorite times.
Out.
So I have some French toast over here.
Look at this.
Calamity Katie's right here.
Calamitous.
I'm gonna go grab that muffin for you, and our chef wanted you to try our grits of the day if you would like to try.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's great.
Spinach, oven roasted tomatoes, Swiss, and garlic.
Are you kidding me?
Enjoy. I'm gonna go grab those little things I need to grab. Okay.
Very cool.
Great, thank you.
Look at this.
Wow.
You know, I never had grits till I came to Wild Eggs.
Really?
And then now I love the grits.
My wife's a big fan of grits. I'm so-so, you know, just but these look great.
I'll tell you this right now. I don't know what my last best meal on earth will be, but I know part of it will be the calamity cake.
Yeah,
it's one of the best things.
it looks great. It looks great.
Let me try these grits real quick for everybody. Then we'll get back into what we want to talk about here. That's on point. We'll come back to those. But first, French toast is calling my name here.
Holy heck!
Yeah. So we were talking about family, you know, and we were talking about your little one, who's not a little one anymore, 24 years old, and you were talking about that interesting avatar that you have at Joe Imel.
Right.
Can you want to share the backstory of that? That's
Oh, sure. Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Well, as a photojournalist, I was I've been covering a lot of things like we talked about, and over the years, I've photographed a lot of religions.
Right.
Made it kind of a long-term project, religions and groups that use religion loosely for whatever reason. And in the 90s, early 90s, the KKK had a resurgence here in Bowling Green for whatever reason. And so they were, I was covering them, you know, and to let people know about them, not for any reason other than
it's news, man.
It's
That's what you
news,
do.
and
You have to report it.
people need to know about groups like that are out there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my son at the time was very young, and he would see, you know, me editing this stuff, and so there happened to be on the heels of a KKK rally, there was a peace rally, and I really wanted Zach to be there to see. This is the real reason, you know, that people should rally. You know, this was a great response, and I wanted Zach to be there to know that, you know, as a photojournalist, I was documenting this for a news reason and for the paper of record, and to let people know. And so I took Zach to this peace rally, and he had a baseball cap on. He was about 3 or 4 years old. And he had picked up one of my cameras, film cameras with a wide-angle lens, and
you're freaking out because you're like, don't drop the camera. It costs like 10 grand.
10 grand camera, and he turns his hat around backwards, and he starts to take a picture. I whip around and I reel off a couple frames, and his eyes peeking out there, and that's the photo. That's my. If anybody asks, what's your favorite photo? I've photographed presidents and I've photographed everything, but my favorite photo is that avatar of Zach when he was 3 or 4. Trying to take a picture, and you know he's a good photographer.
He stuck with it, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of that too, how important is it with what you do, what you've done for years, traveling the world, traveling, you know, and being in you know, high pressure situations like that and other things, covering the news, putting yourself out there. How important is it to have somebody on the home front, a wife that not only supports you, but backs you up and has your back, especially over the last 5 years, which I want to talk about with the invention of a little thing called Twitter.
Right.
But how important is it to have somebody strong like that on the home front?
So, you know, I mean, my family has been always a great photojournalism family. Zach, I take him to a lot of news events and sports events, and Tracy was just a great photojournalism wife. She could load a camera while we're racing to a wreck.
Yeah.
You know, she could pack everything. She knew what I needed. And so one of the funniest stories, though, is I was covering a Western game one night, and Zach and one of his good buddies, Will Peeler, I think they were probably 9 or 10, and they had been with me, and I heard on the scanner there was a shooting, a drive-by shooting, and it had all wrapped up. The police were there, and so, you know, I threw them in the back of the car, and we raced over to Clay Street, and I yelled at Zach, you know, load me a camera with this and this and this. And Zach and Will are peeking up from there.
Yeah.
And it was a Kentucky drive-by shooting. So what happened was the guy drove by and shot a guy in the butt.
There you go. Another thing we learned.
The Kentucky drive-by.
A Kentucky drive-by.
And he's screaming, "Baby, I'll be all right. I'll be all right." And so he was on the stretcher, face down, and he was, I'm gonna get him, and he was holding his cheek. So
there you go.
So Tracy's been great about it. Great.
That's it. I mean, that's a big thing. Especially, like I said, over the last few years, with the invention of this device, the smartphone, you know, iPhones, whatever it may be, something called Twitter came along.
Right.
And that's where many people out there identify the Joe Imel they know, the @ symbol before your name. When did the Twitter phenomenon start for you? Like, when did you first go, man, there's something going on with this?
Sure. You know, it's been oh, I don't even know how long I've been on Twitter, and it says on there, but I really don't pay attention to it. But I've always listened to the police scanner, and for 30 years, and that's how a photojournalist, that's how a news person gets their news. Is the police aren't going to call up to say this has happened, or the fire department. We have to, be ready and listen to it. And so I had always heard all of this low-level news. Not that you're going to write a story about, the mama with a baby on her hip and a ball-peen hammer in the other hand, beating out the windows of her husband's Trans Am because she caught him cheating. That's not a news story, but it's the fabric that weaves this community together.
I like that. That's another good Imelism right there.
And so I would always do what Twitter is before Twitter, on the sidelines of my son's soccer game, at the hockey rink. I was always, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? And I was telling scanner stories. And then Twitter came along, and nobody wants to know Joe Imel's hungry. Joe Imel's going to eat a glazed donut, And I was listening to the scanner one day, and we have SCA Incontinence, a company that makes Depends. Adult diapers.
Yeah, adult diapers.
And I heard the fire tones go off, and they they start beeping, and car 1, ladder 1, and engine 7, quint 4 respond to a fire alarm at respond to a fire alarm at SCA Incontinence. We have reported water flow. And I was like, how funny, we got water flow at the incontinence place. And I just imagine everybody sloshing around in huge Depends hanging off their butt, just not that they work in Depends.
No, I know, but it's the visual.
And so I thought, man, I'm going to tweet that out. And so I thought, why not, And so I hear this stuff all day, and 140 characters at the time, and I'll tweet it out.
Do you feel like sometimes, though, that you almost get, you've become like, it's great for you. I mean, it's great for you, but you've this brand that you've built with the @JoeImel and on Twitter, and you're right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's launching things into a whole nother stratosphere. Right. But do you ever feel like sometimes like it's like, now what have I created? Like this monster, And it's like because you get tweets now. I've seen this. You get tweets now before like they'll see a car wreck and they'll tweet @JoeImel before they call 911.
Oh, I have to remind people, please. I'm not the authorities.
Right.
Call 911.
Right.
Call the first, call somebody first and then tweet it out. But that's that kind of thing where today, this thing has impacted our lives so much that people lose their minds, I mean, the first thing they're doing is they're up taking a picture, when they should be calling. But it's also that crowdsourcing of journalism. And one unintended consequence, it's been really good, is that it's brought people out there letting us know what's happening, and the newspapers always needed that, and it's a good thing, but it is a little bit of a monkey on my back keeping up that
you're recognized now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Not that you weren't recognized before, but the power of social media was the same way. It used to be radio people. We did radio so we could go have dinner or whatever, and people wouldn't know who we are. Same way with you. It's like I'm behind the camera for a reason.
Oh, sure.
But now you go to a restaurant and people will tweet, hey, look, I saw Joe Imel.
Yeah.
I mean, you get this rock star mentality. We're just sitting here at Wild Eggs. People are like, is Joe Imel over there?
Right.
What's going on?
Sure.
What's that like for you, and what's that like for the wife as well?
So it's pretty funny. I was speaking, Stacy Biggs had me up at her social media class just recently. And so I'm walking through the halls of Grice Hall, and there must be 100 students in the hallway, and I'm just kind of sauntering through, and there's this group of gaggle of guys over there, and as I walk by, I hear, dude, that's Joe Imel, and so Tracy called me. This has been a while back. Tracy called me one day. She said, oh, what are you doing? I said, oh, busy at work. No, you're not. I said, what do you mean? You're at Wino's having a beer. Oh.
Everybody.
And she goes, I said, how do you know that? And she said, did you check your Twitter feed? And sure enough, there was a young couple, and I hadn't paid attention. I was having a beer. Snapped a photo. And so Tracy, she thought it was funny all the way up until somebody photographed us as we were walking away one time. She was just like, don't get me from behind.
And on that note, Joe, man, thank you so much. Seriously, one thing that in the last few years that I've been downtown with you, we essentially we're colleagues now.
Sure.
We were friends, but then we became colleagues on top of it. And on top of all the @JoeImel and the don't be a tweet and everything, one of the most stand-up good guys in town. and with solid roots and a solid family around you. And like I said, man, you're fighting a good fight out there.
Well, thank you very much.
brother,
I appreciate it.
I
Cheers,
appreciate
and I enjoy being here at Wild Egg. This is a very cool way to connect with people. This lunch with Tony Rose, always staying on the cutting edge, and Tony's doing that, and that's what we have to do.
Well, here you go. You can check out, of course, Joe Imel at Joe Imel on Twitter. The best way, though, is go out and pick us a subscription to the Bowling Green Daily News.
That's right.
And you can also find out more at bgdailynews.com. We'll throw all those links up here. You got a Calamity Katie that's calling your name. I've still got some French toast that I haven't put a hurt on yet. I don't want to be a tweet, so we're going to wrap it up. Joe Imel, cheers to you. We'll cheers the phones, too.
Hey, sounds good.
Don't be a tweet, folks. It's Lunch with Tony Rose and Joe Imel.